Hi everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 243 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be, actually, before we get into today's review, I'm wearing this, it makes sense I'm wearing this Penn State t-shirt because I'm actually going to college in a couple of days. I'll be going to AACC for the fall semester of the Arnold, Maryland location, and I'm looking forward to it, and hope I would like all of you to, wish me good luck at going to college finally this year. And my parents went to Penn State too, so that's kind of why I'm wearing this t-shirt. Anyway, let's get on to the review. Today's band is, I don't know where this band is from, but the kind of music they're definitely an indie rock and power pop band at heart, and they're signees of the legendary indie label Barzuck Records, who of course you may know being the label for artists like Def Cab for Cutie and John Vanderslice. Of course, I'm talking about the band known as Charly Bliss. They've been around for a few years, and I'm here to review their new album, which came out on May 10th, 2019. And the album is called Young Enough. And got this on vinyl at Soundgarden in Baltimore, Maryland. This is really an excellent album. You may remember I mentioned this album in my favorite albums of 2019 so far video, and definitely still holds that up pretty well. I will go in a little more detail about this, but anyway, here's the album cover, which I think this album cover kind of makes sense given the overall vibe of this album, as well as kind of some of the imagery and the lyrics too. And there's the back. There's 11 tracks on this album, and it's over 37 minutes long. And this is their sophomore record. Of course, I really like a gatefold. This is a little bit of footage from the music video for Capacity, which is the first single on this album. Yeah, and there's also this other insert. It's also footage from that video. Which, this video for Capacity was actually directed by Michelle Zauner, the mastermind behind the indie rock project Japanese Breakfast, which I really like their work. Their most recent album, Soft Sounds from Another Planet, is one of my favorite dream pop and sort of indie records of 2017. And I've heard rumors they're supposed to be out with another record in 2019. Hope that becomes true, because loved Soft Sounds quite a bit. And here's the lyric insert. And I do really like this vinyl color that they have here. It's like turquoise or something like that. There's side A, then there's side B. Yep, that's the packaging for Charly Bliss's new album, Young Enough. Now, this is an album that really surprised me in 2019. I mean, I didn't really go into this album kind of expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, because I had only heard little bits and pieces of their last album, Guppy, which of course is their debut album, released in 2017. But I didn't really need to hear any more than I did, because I really wasn't a big fan of that album. Like, the kind of nasal, high-pitched vocals of Eva Hendricks kind of, were a little uneasy on the ears for me, and also I found the production on that thing to be kind of messy and a little too wonky in terms of the lo-fi characteristic. Now here on this new album, they've definitely kind of matured significantly, not just in terms of the lyrics being a little more complicated and dark, but also because the production on here is decidedly more polished, and more sort of grand. And that is sort of partly thanks to the producer on this album being the Grammy-winning producer, Joe Chiccarelli, who you may know for producing records from like U2, Beck, The White Stripes, as well as Spoon recently. So it kind of makes sense he'd be working with yet another indie act here with Charly Bliss. But in my opinion, all these sort of shifts in terms of how they approach this record, it's for the better in my opinion, because I think this is by far Charly Bliss at their best thus far. I will say, this is the kind of album that still kind of maintains some of the familiar things that they're all about. For example, catchy hooks and inspiring melodies, which I think they do incredibly well on this album. But, some of its lyrical content is quite harrowing and morbid. Take a look at cuts like Chatroom or Hurt Me. It's very obvious she's actually been through some more than just like bad relationships, actually abusive relationships too. So you can really feel the emotion when she's singing. Lyrics like, so the way your shirt hangs off your back, easy, but you're nothing like that. Eyes like a funeral, mouth like a bruise, veins like a hallway, voice like a wound. You don't want to hurt me. You don't want to hurt me, baby. I feel that much more empathy for her as, she's kind of singing lyrics like that, even though it is over very gorgeous keyboard playing and really nice kind of vocal harmonies too. And when she hits that higher register, that's when it really hits me hard, for sure. Sure. There certainly are some excellent, very cathartic and catchy pop songs on here. I love the opening track, Blown to Bits. It's definitely one of the first songs I've heard from them that's been truly anthemic. I mean, right down to that chorus. It's gonna break my heart to see you blown to bits. It's gonna break my heart to see you blown to bits. It will easily get stuck in your head, and definitely a very promising way to open the album. The following track, Capacity, of course, is, as I mentioned, lead single from this album. This track did take its time to grow on me, but it definitely is one that I really like for. The band does delve into kind of more electro-pop territory with this track, but they do it really well. I mean, I love the layers of synthesizers, the kind of cheeky melodies that permeate the track, as well as its lyrics about how she sort of feels like she's at capacity and everything's sort of spilling out of her because she's really been through a lot. Like, she's kind of had to reconsider who she really is. Like, she kind of felt the need to be good at everything, as well as do right by everyone. But now she knows that that she can barely keep herself afloat when not saving another person. person. So it's definitely a lot to really think about. Even though the song will likely put a smile on your face a little bit, so you'll kind of, you'll wear kind of you'll wear kind of a smile as well as kind of maybe a little bit of a what's happening here kind of face. Then we have the song Under You, which actually kind of reminds me a little bit of actually pop punk a little bit, with the way that the song sounds so incredibly catchy and rebellious. And this is probably the closest she ever comes to a love song in this album, even though it's kind of a song about how that thing that is bad for you, but yet you can't resist it, so you kind of keep coming back to it a little bit. It's a little bit. Fans of the new Pup album, Morbid Stuff, which, as you could tell from my previous review, I'm most certainly one of them, will likely enjoy this album because it has kind of similar characteristics of it's very catchy and you could sing along to it, but its lyrics at heart are incredibly dark and heartrending. Dark and heartrending. I will say a couple of moments here where I think the band kind of doesn't really leave as much impact. The song Camera, in my opinion, is probably my least favorite here because the melodies on this track just feel very safe and kind of, it feels like something I've heard from other indie bands before. And also, even its lyrical content doesn't really leave as much impact. And even Eva Hendrix's singing on here doesn't really have that much character to it. Even though I will say the lyrics that she's singing are actually pretty good. Even though not the best on the lyrical front either. It's like overall just kind of a little bit of a filler moment for me. And then we have the track Fighting in the Dark, which does sound like a really good idea, because I really like the few lines she puts in here, but the fact that it just feels kind of like a half-baked idea, and that the song just ends at this 1 minute and 10 seconds, kind of makes it feel like a little bit like something that was, not even finished. So I definitely wish maybe she and her bandmates would have added a chorus as well as another verse, and then the chorus again. It would have felt more like a complete song right there. But the title track, Young Enough, is definitely one of the best tracks on here, and definitely one of the more ambitious cuts on here. It definitely feels like this really killer power ballad, and it clocks in at over 5 minutes and 20 seconds, but the whole time just leaves me totally engaged. And the way they incorporate the additional keyboards and piano in here, in with the guitars and the big booming drums, is just flat out incredible. Excuse me. And it's sort of a song about how you sort of when you feel young, you kind of reach a point where you can't really focus on feeling young anymore, and you kind of have to sort of grow up and mature and sort of develop a more open mind to what life will bring to you. And I really like some of its clever poeticisms about crushing cigarettes just to prove a point. As well as another line that I think really slayed me was the line of, "It's just the way your hair hangs in your face makes me want to die." And it's sort of a song about, and I like how she talks about being in this relationship, about to make love to this person, sort of saying it as electing to drown in this person. Sin is definitely a very witty way to approach this kind of songwriting angle. angle. Then we have the song Bleach that also features some of the best melodies on the entire album. And another track that I think utilizes synthesizers and keyboards very well. They don't try to do anything crazy out there with the synthesizers, but they do only add to kind of the catchiness and the catchiness and emotion that is brought into this album, I think. Like on this track, Treads, and I also do really like the lines of spitting me out, and should I say something nice, I'm effing joy, and I hemorrhage light. He can destroy everything that I like. Biggest buildings and bleed stained white. Eva Hendricks really does show off some unique poeticisms in these lyrics. Lyrics. I highlighted the song Chatroom earlier, but I definitely would like to, go in a little more detail about this track. This is another one that I think is one of the catchiest songs on the entire album. And she confronts her kind of enemies by sort of speaking from the perspective of this person that obviously did her wrong. But in the chorus, sort of coming in with the sort of mantra of, I'm not going to take you home. So take you home. And she does that really well in this cut. The song Hard to Believe, is another one of the lead singles for this album. And another song that definitely feels a little bit like power pop, but also a little bit like pop punk, a little bit as the chorus on this thing is so anthemic and will definitely get stuck in your head pretty instantly. I also do like the catchy little guitar lick on there. Definitely will pull you in instantly too. And she opens the song with the line, I'm kissing everything that moves. I'm kissing anything that takes me far away from you. But I would rather eat than starve. I would rather kiss you hard. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right to even think about. So she's talking about how, this was a pretty bad relationship, but yet she's having a hard time trying to accept that, it's over and she's going to have to move on with her life. But, this is the kind of album that there isn't a ton of, comic relief from all the darkness, but yet it sort of feels like healing, too, at the same time. It sort of feels like the band's really, healing themselves to sort of move on with their lives. And, anyone who's been through similar things that Eva Hendricks has been through, will likely feel better after listening to this album. Which is kind of, even considering the closing track on this thing, The Truth, which definitely is one of the most kind of blatant and sort of raw tracks on the album. Lyrically, I mean, she really does, kind of tug at my heartstrings with the line of, bite the hand that feeds the boy. He's beautiful and I'm annoyed. 40 years or days from now, I kill myself to cut you out. The song also does feature some very nice, kind of cheeky piano arpeggios, as well as a really nice kind of really nice drumming that syncopates with the keyboards very well. Definitely a great way to close an excellent album. Yeah, really digging this album. I didn't expect that Charly Bliss would really wow me this much, but here they really did come out with one of the better power pop and indie rock albums that I've heard in 2019, So in 2019, this is the kind of album that fans of theirs certainly will really like. This is the kind of album that maybe Sure, this may be the kind of album that some fans will likely think is maybe a little bit of a step down and a little more conventional. And yes, this album is a little more conventional than their last album, I would argue, but it does it well. So it definitely is one that I highly recommend. So feeling a solid 8 out of 10 on this new Charly Bliss record, Young Enough. And I will see you for episode 244 of Album of the Day.